I want to welcome those of you guys who are tuning into the podcast. First and foremost, I want to encourage you guys to head on over to the show notes of this episode / pitching talks, because there's going to be a few things that I'm going to link. And if you guys want, you can go check them out. Show notes, therobbyroshow.com/showcase. Robby with a Y /showcase. That was hard to say. /showcase. Wow, she shed. Anyway, so what we're going to talk about is basically the subject of, showcases, pro days, that whole element of that is included within the game of baseball when you're when you're aspiring to play at like the next level. So for high school guys, it's those college showcase type things, and even for the college guys and maybe some high school guys, it's the showcases of scouts. And I also want to talk about just like dealing with and reacting and responding to recruiters or scouts. I know I've talked about this a few times in the past, but my boy Austin Atwood reached out and suggested that I do a talk on not only what to expect at the physical showcase, but what to expect when talking to a recruiter or talking to a scout. And the only thing that I could sit here and talk about today is kind of my experience, what I went through, what I learned through my process. And I do want to say, first and foremost, I'm not going to talk about myself in a sense of me bragging about me, but the only thing that I can do is talk about my journey and how I went about it, what I learned through it, and so on and so forth. So for those of you guys who do not know my story, is when I was in high school, I was I was highly touted. I was ended up getting drafted in the 3rd round, and for me, my process was a little chaotic because I was a high schooler. I was 18 years old, and I had just committed to a good college, but I kind of knew the whole time that I was going to play professional baseball, and that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to get drafted, and so I went through this whole kind of hectic scouting process. And looking back at it, it was crazy. It was something that you don't really know how to respond to until you're in it. So I think this is going to be a good time for me to really just touch on a multitude of different things all at once, because again, as ball players, we're so focused on just we just play ball, and then there's kind of other things that that we need to be equipped for throughout that process. Things, for example, like talking to a recruiter, talking to a scout, presenting yourself extremely well, being a human being, being a good human being. I know these things go a long way, and I know the importance is obviously on the talent and if you're a good baseball player or not, but sometimes the make or break decision on you could potentially be, well, this guy's a better teammate, or this guy is just a better human being. So like I said, there's going to be a few things in this that I'm going to link on a page for you guys to dive a little bit deeper into it. therobbyroshow.com/showcase. And I know I'm talking about showcase, but there's going to be a ton of different things that we're going to unpack in this talk. So first and foremost, when it comes to showcases, when it comes to pro days, when it comes to things within the baseball industry that you can go to get seen, or to put your name out there, get on the radar, all of these showcase type things. My encouragement for you is you got to really identify, and it's going to be potentially a tough thing to do, and you might need to go and talk to some other people about this. But when it comes to these showcases that have recruiters or have scouts there, I'm telling you, I'm going to walk a tightrope here. But for me, it's about are you going to stick out, and are you going to Do you have skills within your skill set that are going to impress people? Because if you don't, then I encourage you not to go to these. Save the money that you spend on these and just train, because this is what happens, guys. There's a bunch of, whether it be college or whether it be professional scouts, there's a bunch of people that attend these types of things, and what happens is, if you're a guy, and I know everyone's gonna have bad days, but if you're a guy that goes there and you really don't have like one thing that sticks out, like on that, how scouts have the 20-80 scale, if you don't have that one tool that really impresses guys, then these scouts or these recruiters kind of, put your name on a list that's like, okay, let's not waste our energy on a guy like this. Let's not go out of our way to watch for a guy like this. And again, like, that's not always the case, in the sense of you can potentially do something extremely well, in the future that puts your name back on the list, but sometimes it does more harm than good for you guys to go to these showcases or pro days or whatever it is and underperform, or not even just underperform, but like not necessarily have that one thing that sticks out, because then you kind of get booked as a guy that's these guys aren't going to be interested. So, if you're just an average guy and you're paying a bunch of money, or your parents are paying a bunch of money to go to these showcases, and you have nothing that like jumps off the page, you're just, I think for me personally, like, you're putting yourself further and further behind the 8 ball, rather than like being smart about that and taking that money and funneling it into like a really good training program and putting yourself in best possible situations to get better and improve your craft. So therefore, in the future, you could go to these types of showcases or events and perform well and stick out, Next thing about these like pro days, showcases or whatever, I've got a few DMs actually in the past week or so about, when a recruiter talks to you, or when a scout talks to you. Again, it's one of those things as ball players, like, we don't ever really like prepare ourselves for, right? When you're in the moment, you just kind of react in a way that you only know how to. So if I can sit here and like better equip you, the words of encouragement that I would say is be a genuine human being. I think scouts and recruiters, they want to see the personality behind the athlete, and they want to see, like, do you drastically change who you are in the environment of like a one-on-one conversation? Do you drastically change? Do you get timid? Do you get nervous? Do you shake a hand? Do you shake the guy's hand like a little 4-year-old girl, or are you freaking like a man, chest puffed out? What's up? I got a 4.460 time. Whoa. But it's really like they want to see that. Remember, when you go to these showcases, when you go to these events, like, everyone there that's scouting or recruiting, they have a window, like a really small window to get a read on the athlete. So they're going to look at every element, not just about, oh, he's got a good swing, or, oh, he's got a 95-mile-an-hour fastball. Like, they're going to look like, is he a good teammate? Is he talking to other people out there? Is he a loner kind of like on the right field line during shag? And, is he, how does he approach like his parents after the event's over? Like, what is the person like? That's why a lot of the times, like, scouts, recruiters, like, they want to go up and talk to you and have that one-on-one conversation to see, like, how quickly and how easily do you get nervous talking to that? Do you drastically change? Because, again, this is one of those really little things, but scouts and recruiters, man, they've been doing it for so long, they're smart. And they're not going to go after a guy that, as soon as you go to have a one-on-one conversation with the athlete, he pees his pants. And it's like, well, what's he going to do on a Friday night game against number 3 ranked team in the nation? I mean, that stuff maybe potentially bleeds over. And again, yeah, there's probably exceptions maybe for people that just don't do well in conversation. I totally get that. But it's a little thing, but take into consideration, like, even put into practice, like, how are you going to approach a scout? Or if a scout or recruiter approaches you, how are you going to talk back? Identify, like, okay, so again, I'm not going to brag, but when I was going through my scouting process, like, one thing that I think jumped out to a lot of people was like my personality and my ability to like be mature, I guess, within my approach, you know, and when you fill out your brochures or your packets that colleges or pro teams send you, and they want to know like your routine, I would always, you know, and it helped having a dad in the big leagues, but it was like always identified, you know, when was I at my best and what I did well, what I didn't do well, strengths, weaknesses, and my personality was like, I didn't care if I was talking to the janitor or the CEO, like I was going to be myself no matter what, you know, and I think as I learned over time, like those are the types of things that stick out. Like, oh, he's like the same, he's treating me the same, you know, than he treats his parents or whatever. And I'm not sitting there like, or sitting here saying, you know, if you treat your parents like crap, treat a scout or a recruiter like crap. No, but have a sense of respect, and that's with every single person that you come into contact with. You know, it shouldn't change. So, like I said, everything matters. They have a small window to get a read on you in these certain showcases or events type things. So, you best believe that they're going to look at every little thing, you know. And I mean, when I was going through my process, like I had guys coming to my basketball games, coming to my house, going to my school, trying to get a read on who I was, and not just who I was like in that 90 minutes of my start, but like who was I off the field? Who was I in the classroom? Who was I to my peers, to my parents? Did I treat people with respect? You know, did I show certain qualities that were going to match up with an organization's, you know, mantra? You know, guys, you know, there's so much talent out there now. There's no room for being a bad teammate or being a bad person. You know, you just don't have that room anymore. So, yeah, I guess that's my encouragement is, you know, if you have to put into practice like one-on-one interactions with guys like who are coming to recruit you, coming to scout you. I know it sounds silly, but it's true. You know, it's true. Like things change when a man or a woman of high importance is like in your presence and knowing like you got to talk to them, right? Because we're human beings. Like we're faced with that like sense of, holy crap, I better be careful with my words now. And you start, you know, like paying really close attention. So a couple examples that I want to talk about in terms of, you know, identify for yourself approaching these certain pro days or scout days or recruiting days, just so you have an idea of kind of like what to expect. They're going to want to know what you think you do well, right? And that's not just something where like, oh, well, I think I'm fast. Like really dive into it. Like when you answer these questions, they're analyzing you and how you answer it. Like, do you know yourself? Do you know the game? Do you know certain qualities that that are of importance, that are needed? You know, like, oh, I'm a good teammate. Yeah, that's an easy answer, right? Like that's what everyone wants to hear. But like dive deeper into it, man. You know, like as a pitcher, I think, you know, when people ask me like what do I do well, what separates me? Well, like when I was 18, you know, for some reason I just always had an ability to throw multiple pitches for strikes in any count. So like that was the thing that I said would stick out, was like, well, I can throw a fastball to both sides of the plate, 4 quadrants. I could throw a curveball early in counts, late in counts. I had the ability to break it off in the dirt or throw it for a strike at the top of the zone to get a take. I have a slider that I'm not necessarily great at arm side, but I can get glove side to extend with righties to complement off a 4-seam fastball. I'm working on a 2-seam that I think has potential, but these high school baseball seams are too freaking big right now, and I just can't throw a 2-seam because I just get blisters. And I'm working on a changeup. I like my changeup, but right now I'm just not throwing it to these high school hitters because it's natural fastball speed in comparison to, you know, everyone else. So like having an identification process of what I did well, what they like kind of want to hear, and then getting a brief glimpse inside the athlete's mindset on how to approach that. And I can't speak for hitters because I guess I just don't know too much about how to really dive into that side of it. And I'm sure everything's kind of different now with the analytics scheme and all the technology that we have. But I encourage you to start, thinking about that. What do I do well? What do I do that separates me from the rest of my teammates or the rest of the pack or the rest of the athletes out there? Start identifying that. That's stuff that could potentially impress people or propel you past a certain group. Like, okay, this guy has the same talent level as all of these guys, but shoot, he knows the game, he knows himself, and you can just tell by the way he talks that he freaking is a grinder. He loves it, he gets after it. I'm telling you, man, that stuff matters. As much as I think it's a very little thing, it all matters. I alluded to it before. There's just so much talent now. Guys are so good at this game, they're so talented. Whereas when I was coming up, I would touch 93, 94 in games, and it was holy smokes. I feel like that's a super common thing now in high school. Guys are doing that freshman year. So make sure you just set yourself up for success. Put yourself in the best possible situation to have success, to get scouted, to get recruited, to have success at these showcases. Be mindful of literally everything that you do, they're paying attention to, and just be a good dude, be a good person. Practice the way you talk, practice the way you interact with someone that is of high importance. These are all that I can encourage you with. But like I said, if you don't stand out, I would encourage you to rethink the option of not going, spending that money on training. Don't get super timid, because then they're going to think that you're going to be timid in big games. Don't be timid. Treat everyone with respect, whether it's a recruiter, scout, or even the maintenance crew at the field that you're at. It doesn't matter. They're paying attention to that. I'm going to link a few things. I have a podcast with Dr. Heenan that we did on how to stand out from an athletic standpoint at showcases. I'll link that again in the URL browser of your mobile phone or desktop or whatever, therobbyrowshow.com/showcase, and that's Robby with a Y. I'll include it in the link in my Instagram bio and whatnot. I'll probably post about it, so be on top of that so you don't miss it. And I'll link another few pitching talk segments that I did on how to get seen, how to stand out, certain qualities that stand out, and all that stuff will be linked on that page. So be sure to go check that out. Podcast listeners. I guess non-podcast listeners, if you're listening to this on IG or YouTube, be sure to go check out the pod. I bring on a ton of guests that all provide educational content and insights to how to better your game or even just better yourself in your everyday life. So yeah, I know that was a lot to unpack, but I hope you definitely took something from that. As always, much love. Shout out to the catching guy for the dope shirt. Kind of makes me look Jimmy jacked. Appreciate that. And new camera lens. So I'm kind of pumped because I think I look a little bit better. All right, guys. Much love. Until next time, we'll talk to you later.